Welcome to Epilogue Podcast, the show where we discuss some stuff that happened on a different show ages ago which nobody really cares about anymore.
Hi, I'm Portponky.
And I'm LeBloc.
Today we're discussing Deep Space Nine, Season 2, Episode 8, Necessary Evil. After an attack on Quark's life, Odo recalls a 5-year-old murder case and believes it may be related to what happened to Quark.
That's an amazing memory Odo has.
Well, he said it many times. His memory is fantastic.
It was a bit contrived to suddenly have Odo recording logs, but it fits so well with the episode that I didn't care. I loved hearing his little diary entries.
He got quite emo in them, moaning about the point of it. Crawling in my skin.
Well, he has no one to talk to. He doesn't have a fellow shapeshifter to moan about his job.
I guess. Anyway, what was your impression of this episode?
I liked it a lot. We get to see Odo the investigator, and it was very reminiscent of a film noir.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was apparent. They weren't trying to hide that. And it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of humor in this, but then it also dealt with a murder. We see how some characters met for the first time, and more is revealed about certain characters. We've mentioned before that Kira's history is the most fertile as far as revelations, but it's still a lot of fun. How about you? What did you think?
Yeah, it was very reminiscent of a certain Season 1 episode that was very good. And it definitely captures the attention. The plot is twisty-turny, and the ending just kicks you in the gut.
Oh, the ending is so good. I love that it's not answered as if it's too painful to say because we know the answer.
Yeah, and you don't, or I didn't expect it for a second. Well, I mean, I already knew it, but you don't get the impression up until this point that Kira would ever have done something like that.
Right. We knew she had a past, but we didn't know necessarily it would include something like this.
Yeah, sabotaging equipment, the excuse she gives, it just seems like that's the sort of thing she was up to. You know, kind of somewhere between vandalism and disorderly behavior. You don't...
Exactly.
And you think, oh, she's probably shot Cardassians as well. You don't think she's murdered a fellow Bajoran for the cause of freeing her planet. So, the fact that she's done stuff like that, and it makes so much sense as soon as it clicks. It's like, oh, yeah, it was really quite powerful towards the end.
We knew she's rebellious, but we didn't know she's this rebellious.
Yeah, and I love how that sort of twist at the end is right at the end. It's not easy to pick up on at all. There's so many little ways they dissuade you from figuring it out. For example, Odo says she's a terrible liar, and then you assume she's obviously telling the truth after that, but no, she's just a double good liar.
I didn't suspect at all that she committed the murder. We have so much faith in Odo's abilities to exact justice, so it rules out Kira for the audience, and then it happens to be her, so it's pretty shocking.
Another thing I liked about the episode was it was quite Rom heavy, and he was the MVP of the episode for me. Every scene he was in, he was being quite fantastic.
Agreed. Rom was used really well. Usually he just has some throwaway lines so Quark has someone to bounce off of, but he was his own character here. It was fun.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like such a moron. He's hacking into the doors and melting the panels off, and says he's broken into Quark's vault safe or whatever and replaced all without him noticing.
That scene is so good because we get the action of retrieving the box, and during that sequence we find out that Rom has been doing things that Quark was unaware of, and he's saying these things to impress Quark, but he just reveals himself as untrustworthy. It's pretty funny and well done.
Yeah. Although I don't think he is untrustworthy to Quark. Well, I'm sure he would backstab Quark, but I don't think he would be untrustworthy in a petty way.
It was all justified in his mind.
Absolutely. He had another excellent bit at the end when he starts screaming his head off.
And then that tiny smile creeps on Quark's face.
I like how he screamed his head off when he realized Quark was going to live. As well, he just keeps screaming. I also like how Quark didn't get better in the episode. They didn't need to show that because, you already know he'll be fine. They're not going to kill off the main character randomly like this in the middle of the season. So instead of trudging through that for the viewer and saying, oh, look, Quark is better now, they just left it open because you can fill in the blanks.
Yeah, right. This episode showed a lot of restraint like that. The ending is another example of that. Not showing Quark healed. It showed what it needed to show, and that's nice. It's nice when the show respects the audience like that.
It is indeed. I think it was the same director as Duet, so I don't know.
They should just make him direct everything.
Well, these two episodes are kind of similar, although they're both great, so maybe it would get a bit samey if every week a dark secret about Kira's past was revealed during an extended interrogation scene. There are lots of little homages to classic detective tropes as well. Did you pick up on the most obvious one?
Well, I don't know if this is the most obvious one, but it was my favorite when Odo was about to leave the room and then he turns around. One more thing. That's great. It's obvious investigator line.
It's Columbo.
Yeah, that was nice to see.
Yeah, that one stuck out, a little Columbo reference. There's another classic detective moment when Odo and Cisco were pressing Rom and they were playing good cop, bad cop.
Oh, and the way it opens was reminiscent of film noir. How it's just cold into a shot of a woman talking about murder.
Yeah, that was good. Although I've written down some criticisms, and one of them was from that scene.
Uh-oh, let's hear it.
It's the classic one, lightning and thunder at the same time. But it is
maybe it's different
noir.
On Bajor.
What?
The lightning
Principles
and thunder is different.
Yeah, no, it was just them either being silly or referencing film noir. Probably the first. I have a couple other criticisms. I'll run through them really quick because it's just minor stuff. After Quark gets shot, Bashir yells, "We need an anti-grav stretcher in here. Stat." Or immediately, or something. Hang on, an anti-grav stretcher? But when Melora was visiting the station, they couldn't get her an anti-grav wheelchair because anti-grav tech doesn't work on Cardassian tech.
Maybe they solved that in the time between this episode and the Melora episode.
Wow, they really care about Melora.
Well, they realized what a disaster it was to have rimmed hallways and not be able to have disabled people freely move about the station, so they made it a point to solve that.
That does fit in with their pattern of taking 5 minutes to solve everything once it's raised.
It only took Bashir 5 minutes to solve her brain troubles.
Yeah, exactly. Everything that's raised. Oh no, it's a new space wobble that we've never seen, or oh, we've all got a disease that's brand new, or whatever it is. You know, not even by the end of the episode, but by 5 minutes time, they'll have a working solution that is adequate to solve it.
Yeah, so they solved it after she left.
Fair enough. One other thing which is very easy to criticize it for is the security guard who's guarding Quark.
Oh, yeah.
Just is terrible. I'm pretty sure the hitman could have beat him to death with the flowers. He didn't even need the knife. Just walks in and says, "Hey, can you show me what it looks like when you shoot yourself?" The guy says, "Well,
sure.
Okay." They didn't even lock the door. So that's the stuff I wrote down as criticisms, all minor, silly stuff.
My criticism is when Odo says your epidermis is perfectly normal when he's interrogating the woman. Not everyone reacts to grief the same way. You can't count on everyone to cry. So I thought that was weird that he would just assume she would have been crying.
Yes, maybe he was just pressing her, but more likely it's kind of sloppy writing in that particular section. Then again, if it's based on film noir, they would have assumed that back then.
What you just said makes sense. Even if it's not true, maybe Odo recognized that and just wanted to make her feel tense and press her further. So it could just be a tactic.
Lean on her and see if she spills anything. The Cardassian Deep Space Nine is very
dark
and miserable looking. Quite a scary place, actually.
That's the Cardassian aesthetic.
Gul Dukat was there, and last time he was on the station, we commented that he wasn't that much of a scary character in person, but I felt differently here. He was back to his unnerving self.
Much more imposing this time around.
For sure. When Odo walks in and sees him reclining over the desk.
Casually.
Yeah, something about
shares
that
his dead guy.
casual pose, it puts you on edge. And when he walks in whilst Odo just found out Kira's part of the underground, it was super tense with the cat there. Even though you know that he doesn't spill it, obviously, because then Kira would be dead.
Right. It's still tense.
Yeah, he's back on form here, I think.
He's used effectively here, and he doesn't just storm out of a room crying.
All the cuts back to flashbacks were really, really good.
Yeah, it was seamless. I was never confused. It was always clear. Part of that is because of the lighting, and then it was a good choice to have Kira with long hair, and the characters are in different clothes, so it was really well woven together.
The first one where Odo opens the door and it cuts to the past with him walking into the room, that was just awesome. It's an Odo episode. You don't expect it. And the way it's cut, it's very clear it's something that happened long ago that's heavy. I don't know, it's just fantastically well constructed episode. It's like a clever little puzzle.
This may have just been me, but I'm going to mention this anyway. Kira seemed really different to me in the past. And I'm saying that in a good way. It felt like a different character, and she would be. Her lines just felt different to me. More desperate or harsh, I'm not sure, but It didn't seem the same Kira that we've grown to know.
That's good. That shows an attention to detail in the character and acting. It definitely seems like a lot happened in those 5 years.
Yeah, and then Odo is still very much Odo. But that makes sense.
I guess one of the interesting points about this episode is that Odo seemingly is willing to not prosecute a murder case.
It's not the crime he was hired to investigate.
True, but he has a shape-shifting boner for justice.
There's probably an Odo rules of justice where this special situation falls under.
Well, I don't know. I think he's not as simplistic as saying murder equals crime. As in, he seems to look at the bigger picture.
He pretends he doesn't, and he'll say he doesn't, but he actually does.
I mean, it's obvious in a sense that Kira was doing these things for a cause that was just. And although Odo says he doesn't pick sides, the fact that he's willing to just not follow it up, just let it slip unmentioned, shows that he's at least comfortable that these things happened for a good reason, even if they were bad things, which shows a less binary version of justice than he's previously espoused.
So would you say he believes in a necessary evil?
Yeah. I guess the ends justified the means.
We have to find some lame way to rearrange that so it can be a rule of justice. I keep saying rule of justice because I imagined that Odo has a set.
Like the rules of acquisition. He sees Quark with his rules of acquisition and he goes home to his security room and sits there all jealous, like, oh, I don't have anything like that. And he just sits writing them down on a piece of paper. Number 27. Guilty means guilty. And then he looks for a while and like crosses it out. Says, no, that's rubbish. Maybe one day he's going to show Kira them. Hey, look what I've been working on. She just looks at him like, oh, what the hell is this?
One of them on there for sure would be keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Because he rattles off a rule of acquisition in this episode. Because I'm sure he's studied Ferengis and followed Quark very closely.
He's probably just read them. His memory is fantastic. The one he rattled off was 139. Wives serve, brothers inherit. Which I think was just put in there to remind us that the Ferengi are misogynists.
In case we didn't get it from the whole episode devoted to that.
Seems overly specific. I mean, a lot of people don't have brothers.
There's that, and you would think that would just be written into Ferengi law. I think they even said it as much. So why make it a rule of acquisition?
Yeah, and it's nothing to do with acquiring things. Well, anyway, sometimes the rules of acquisition fit in nicely and are little nuggets of information, but sometimes they're just sort of used as a sort of plot sandwich filling. And I think this case is the latter.
Not always successful, but I still enjoy when they show up.
So, do you have words of information assembled into a phrase from the show?
In this job, there is no unfinished business. I thought it went well with the episode, how even when a case seemingly closes, there can be repercussions. New evidence can be brought to light. Not everything that happens in life is a nice slice that can be self-contained in an episode. And this episode shows that. And we've had multi-part episodes already. So just a nice reminder that things can extend beyond the time limit of an episode.
Yeah, ideally they should. I mean, if an episode doesn't tell you anything about the characters or grow them in any way, then it's probably not a very good episode.
Agreed.
And this one definitely did improve. Kira, Rom, Odo, they all got some real fleshing out / growth. So what character needs the most work now? Because Kira is really getting to be a substantial character.
I guess I'll say Dax just because there's so much potential there that they haven't done much with.
I would agree on that.
It's a character with the experience of 7 lives. There's a lot you can do with that.
Okay, well, let's hope for a good episode about Dax, or I should say about Jadzia.
Or Dax, it could be about the lifespan of the symbiont.
An episode about Jadzia Dax that wouldn't be good with a different Trill. That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
Alright, good stuff.